All right, this is a quick tutorial on how to play Copenhagen on BGA. Um, so hopefully this is helpful for when we start. Um, this game is basically a polyomino game, kind of like Patchwork or Baron Park, but also you can play the polyominoes by playing cards. So there's a bit of a ticket to ride element to it as well. You're both filling up these buildings with these polyominoes, and you get points for filling rows or columns, and there are extra bonuses when you fill in these spaces or rows with the spaces in them. There's bonuses based on the windows and a few other things. Um, and then the game ends when somebody either gets 12 points or when an end of game card shows up after the deck has been gone through. So here is a setup that I recently played. It's 2 players. I went second, so I got 3 cards and they got 2. And um, basically your turn consists of one of 2 actions. It can be taking cards or placing a polyomino. And there's some basic rules about each. Um, when And remember, you pay for the polyominoes by playing the same color of cards. So if I want to place this 4 blue polyomino, I need to play 4 blue cards and have those in my hand. So to get cards, that's the first thing you can do. You choose one card from this row of 7, and then you have to choose one that is next to it. So if I choose this green one, I have to choose blue or purple as well. If I choose this yellow one, I have to choose purple or red as well. These also wrap, so this red one is adjacent to this other red one. When you're picking cards, you probably want to look for cards of the same color because your hand size is 7, and so you can't just hog cards like you can in Ticket to Ride often. You have to be very careful because these ones that take 5 of the same color, you have to have mostly only that color in your hand to even play those. And those are a lot less likely to be played. So a lot of that first action that you can take is collecting cards. The second action you can take is playing a polyomino on your board. There's some rules around that. It just has to, the basic rules just has to be touching a current polyomino. The first time you play one, it has to be on the bottom layer. That's basically it. So let's look through a few of these turns as they go through. So first, my opponent took this blue card, and so he has to pick the red or the green next to it. He picks the green, it's replaced. I take the purple because I already had purple, and the yellow next to it. I take some. You can see I'm kind of collecting purples here. And they have placed their first green here by paying 3 green polyominoes or green cards to pick one of these green polyominoes. You'll see the numbers on these polyominoes. That's how many there are left. Once they're used, you don't get to use them anymore. So the smaller ones, there are 2 of each typically. It might be different in a 3-player game. But then the large ones, there are only 1 each. And so he placed it down here. It had to touch the bottom to begin with, but then he put it vertically. He could have rotated horizontally. So he also covered up one of these. We'll talk about that in a minute. He was able to do something because of that. So my next turn is pretty similar, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like. I'm going to pay these, because right now my hand is at 7, so I can't take any cards. I don't believe, hold on a sec. Okay, I did just confirm with the rules that you can, if you have 7, you can still draw, but then you have to discard. So you're basically wasting cards. That might be worth it if you're, if I have 3 and I really want to get that 5 polyomino, so I draw 2, and there's 2 purples right next to each other, so I draw those instead. but typically you want to try to use the cards that you're drawing. So I'm going to use these three purple Polyominoes to do basically the same thing. So I click on it, it puts it on my board, and then I have a few options here in BGA. I can flip it, I can rotate it, and I can move it around. I'm sure on the mobile it'll be kind of similar, but I can rotate it around however I want. And then you press confirm, and then it goes and then it's placed on your board. Now, these shield tokens, there's a couple ways to trigger these shield icons here. One is just by covering it, like he did, and like I'm going to do in this next turn. Or if you fill one of these rows that have the shield next to it, then you get to trigger an action. And that action can be one of three things. So you've got these little kind of special power tokens, basically, things that let you do extra pieces, or lets you, like this one lets you draw an extra card, this one lets you pay one less card when you buy something, this one lets you treat all cards of one color like you would another color. So I could change all these reds to purple, and so that would let me get that 5 purple. And then this one, you can both take cards and place a polyomino in the same turn. So these are one-time use tokens, sort of. So when you cover one of these shield tokens, you can do one of three things. You can take a new one of these. There's only enough for one per player. I don't know if you can take a duplicate of that. That's possible. Let me check. Okay, check the rulebook. You cannot have the same ability card. Ability tile is what they're called. You can any duplicates within there. So you could take a different one of these to have that ability. You can take one of these special tiles that lets you just fill in a one blank with a window in there, which can be really helpful if you're trying to fill in a row or a column in a specific way. Or you can refresh all of your used ability tiles. So these ability tiles can be used whenever during your turn. You can use multiple ones at a time, but then they're one-time use until you refresh them through triggering one of these tokens. So you'll see what I do here is I place the tile there, and I grab a new one. I decided to try this new treat all cards of one color. But if you'll see as time goes on, see, he just used that one, it flipped over. He can't use that until he refreshes by covering another one of those tiles and choosing that action to refresh. But sometimes instead of refreshing, you want to just get another one that you can use. And so it's a bit of a balance between how many ability tiles do I get versus how often I use them. But that seems to be the best use of those. If you really need one of these tiles here, that's an option too. Like if you just have this hole that really needs to be filled, that might be an option. But these ability tiles seem really good. So I would tend to use those instead. All right, and so we kind of keep going there. I'm collecting some reds. Then I place this red block here. Now let's talk about rows and columns when you fill it. So you get points for filling rows or columns in your building. You get 1 point for filling a row, or 2 points for filling columns. However, if your row has all windows, you get 2 points for the row, and if your column has all windows, you get 4 points. That's a pretty big deal. So if you can get a column of all windows, 4 points out of that's like a third of your way to winning, to getting to that 12 points. All right, and then this just continues taking cards. See, I used an ability token here. This one you can pick, instead of having them next to each other, you pick 2 that are in different places. See, look, I filled this row with only windows, and I got 2 points there. My component seems to be reaching for these different tiles. Notice I'm kind of filling it in Tetris style and he's kind of filling whatever. As long as it's touching either the bottom or one of your other tiles, you can put them wherever. After a while, I start realizing, okay, I'm definitely not going to be able to fill this whole building, so I'm going to start trying to get some full columns or tiles before the game ends. So I'm going to pause and fast forward this until it gets closer to the end of the game. Okay, so here was right towards the end of the game. You can see my opponent filled this column here, so they got 2 points for that. They have 2 points for this window column, and then they have 2 other columns. That's 2 more points. So they have 6. Well, I have 1, 2, 3 rows plus the window row, and I'm not working on this column with just windows there. Like my next move is going to be probably I'm going to use my special ability to just get that, because I know the game's going to end fairly soon, although I didn't realize how soon, but I was going to use this to just treat one of the reds as yellows, pull this thing out, and fill that column row so I have it, at least that window row. And I get the bonus tile for it. So the way that the game ends, with more than 2 players, this deck, when it runs out, shuffles. And then within the last 9 cards, there's a game-ending card that is shuffled in the last 9 cards. And so if that shows up before somebody gets to 12 points, then the game ends and whoever's in the lead wins. There's no finishing the round or anything. It's just as soon as it shows up. And lo and behold, I took this card instead of, oh, that's right. If I had realized it, I would have just played this, but instead I took some cards to do the next turn. And when they refilled, it could have been in any one of those 9 cards. There it was. And the game ended before I got a chance to play again. This is the ending card. It happened to be the top one on those 9. So that's something to pay attention to. Now, when we play with 3 players, it's going to go through the whole deck and then go through the deck again, and then the last 9 cards will be, you see, kind of is pulsating there as part of a help for that. To remind you that, hey, the game could end at any moment. I was not paying attention to that. That's why I lost here. If I had been able to just get that one piece in instead of drawing cards, I would have got 4 extra points and it would 9-6. So that's the game, really. It's all about balancing what cards you take versus what you're building, timing it out. And with 3 players and running through the deck 2 times, you're probably going to be able to fill more of your building, but not much more because you'll have 3 people drawing instead of 2. And then balancing these ability cards and knowing when to use them, when to flip them, when to get new ones, how useful they are. And so, like, I could use one of these tiles here if I had like all windows and I really wanted to fill that in to end the game or get that extra 2 points. That might be a use of this, but notice neither of us used any of these. It was all the ability cards, which are pretty useful. So that's the game. Pretty straightforward. Hope this all makes sense. Thanks.